My hands were still shaking when I turned off the engine of my muddy, dented car in front of my parents' house. My clothes were still damp, my shoes ruined, and everything I owned now sat packed inside the back seat, a single suitcase and a plastic bag holding my documents. I was 29 years old, and in less than 12 hours, I had gone from homeowner to survivor. The flood came fast. One moment the rain was pounding on my windows, and the next, the river burst its banks and swallowed the entire street. I had barely escaped. By the time the fire department forced residents to evacuate, my house was already half underwater. I watched from the rescue truck as the home I'd worked so hard for, the mortgage payments, the late nights, the renovations, disappeared under brown, churning water. The roof collapsed around 3:17 a.m. Everything I owned drowned in silence. Now, standing at my parents' doorstep, still smelling of river water and smoke, I knocked with trembling knuckles. For the first time in my life, I felt small. The porch light flipped on. For a moment, relief flooded me. They knew. They must have seen the news. They must be worried. But when the door opened, it wasn't concern I saw. It was disgust. My father stood there in his perfectly pressed pajamas, his expression tight, jaw clenched. My mother hovered behind him, her face pale, eyes darting like she was embarrassed someone might see me. "What are you doing here, Emma?" my father asked, voice cold enough to chill the air between us. My throat tightened. "Dad, my house, everything, it's gone. The flood took everything. I have nowhere else to go. I just need a place to stay for a few days until—" "No." The word cut through my sentence like a knife. "No?" I repeated, unable to believe it. He stepped outside, not toward me, but just far enough so the door shielded my mother behind him. "You embarrass us showing up like this," he hissed. "The neighbors will think we raised someone irresponsible, careless. How could you not protect your home? Why didn't you prepare better? Why didn't you save money?" "Dad," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I almost drowned. I barely made it out. Please, just let me shower and sleep. I can sleep on the floor." My mother finally spoke, barely above a whisper. "We don't have space." I stared at her. "You have 6 bedrooms." "We don't have space for a homeless girl." My father snapped the words like a trap shutting. "We have a reputation. You can't just show up dirty and expect us to fix your mistakes." Homeless girl. The words hit me harder than the flood ever could. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I wasn't asking for money. I'm asking for safety. Young adults should be responsible for themselves," my father said, voice final. "Go figure it out." Then, the door closed. Just like that. No hug. No help. No sympathy. Just rejection. I stood there for several seconds, soaked in silence, the porch light still burning above me like a spotlight on my humiliation. The neighborhood was quiet, but I could imagine faces behind curtains, watching. I forced myself to breathe. I forced myself to move. I walked back to my car and sat there with my hands on the wheel, trying not to break. But something inside me cracked anyway. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone. I scrolled past contact after contact until I stopped at a name I hadn't touched in 10 years. Noah Carter. My childhood best friend. My late neighbor's son. We used to climb trees together, sneak cookies from my mom's kitchen, and talk about who we wanted to become someday. Then life took him to boarding school. Then MIT. Then the news. The billionaire tech prodigy. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since his mother's funeral. But right now, I had no one else. I typed, "Noah, it's Emma. I don't know if you remember me. I need help." I hesitated only 1 second before hitting send. I didn't expect a reply. But 10 seconds later, my phone buzzed. "Where are you?" My breath caught. I sent him my location. No response came back. Not another word. 33 minutes later, headlights appeared at the end of the street. But not just any headlights. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled toward my parents' house, impossibly elegant against the muddy pavement. It stopped right at their gate. The back door opened. Noah stepped out, taller, sharper looking, powerful, not the boy I remembered, but someone the world respected. He looked at me, really looked, and his expression softened. Then he said 3 words I will never forget. "You're coming home." When I stepped into the Rolls-Royce, it felt unreal. The leather seats were soft, warm, almost hugging me. The contrast between where I'd come from, mud, fear, and rejection, and where I now sat was almost impossible to process. My clothes were still damp and stained, and I kept wiping my hands on my jeans, terrified I'd ruined something. Noah didn't say anything at first. He just watched me with quiet concern while the driver closed the door and pulled away from my parents' house. The moment we rolled past the front gate, something in me finally collapsed. The tears I'd been holding back spilled over, silent at first, then shaking. I covered my mouth, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, You don't have to apologize," Noah said softly. His voice wasn't the polished CEO tone I'd heard in news interviews. It was familiar. The same voice that once whispered jokes during math class and argued with me about whether dogs or cats were smarter. "Talk to me," he said gently. "Tell me what happened." I took a breath. "It happened so fast," I whispered. "I had sandbags up. I followed the alerts. But the levee didn't just overflow. It broke. The water was inside the house before I even understood what was happening." I wiped my nose with my sleeve. I grabbed what I could, but most of it was gone before I got out. Noah's jaw tightened, not in impatience, but anger. Not at me, at what I'd gone through. "And your parents, they really wouldn't let you in?" I nodded, staring at my hands. "My dad said I embarrassed them." There was a beat of silence. Heavy. Almost suffocating. Then Noah exhaled, slow and controlled, the kind of breath someone takes when they're forcing themselves not to explode. "They don't deserve you," he said quietly. A bitter laugh slipped out. "Apparently nobody does." "That's not true," his voice sharpened. Not harsh, but certain. "You survived something most people never face. You're stronger than you know." I stared out the window. The city lights blurred through my tears. Strength doesn't mean much when you have nowhere to sleep. "You aren't alone," he said. "Not anymore." We drove into the city, past tall buildings I never visited, past places only people like Noah belonged. The car turned toward a modern glass tower with private security and a covered entrance. I stared. "You live here?" "For now," he said, almost shrugging. "I'm between houses." Between houses. To him, that meant penthouse apartments and multiple properties. To me, it meant sleeping in a car, at least until tonight. The driver parked and opened my door. Noah offered his hand, not because I needed help, but because he wanted me to know I wasn't facing life alone. Inside, everything felt silent and expensive. Marble floors, warm lighting, a concierge who addressed him by name and me with gentle kindness, after one glance at my soaked clothing. When we reached his apartment, I froze. It wasn't an apartment, it was an entire floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city skyline glittering against the night. Soft music played somewhere in the background. The air smelled like cedar and something warm, like safety. Noah took a slow breath. "You can stay here as long as you need. Days, weeks, doesn't matter." My voice barely worked. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not," he said firmly. "Emma, I owe you more than you know." I frowned. "Owe me? Noah, I haven't done anything for you." He looked at me then, not with pity, but with memory. "When my mom died," he said quietly, "everyone pretended she had been fine before it happened. Everyone avoided talking to me because grief made them uncomfortable." He swallowed. "But you didn't. You walked next door every day for weeks. You didn't ask questions or push or pity me. You just sat with me, even when I didn't talk." I remembered, for him, it was a chapter. For me, it had been instinct. "You were the only person who made me feel like I wasn't disappearing," he continued. "That matters." My throat tightened. Before I could speak, he pointed toward a hallway. "There's a guest room with a private bathroom. Fresh clothes are in the closet. Women's sizes. I keep extra for guests." I raised an eyebrow. "Guests?" He laughed softly. "Not what you're thinking. My sister visits. My head of PR insists I shouldn't dress visitors in company merchandise." For the first time since the flood, my lips curved into a real, not forced, smile. The shower water was warm. The towels were soft. The clean clothes fit. And when I finally climbed into the crisp, cool sheets of the guest bed, every muscle in my body surrendered. Before sleep took me, one thought echoed in my mind. My parents had slammed a door in my face, but someone else had opened one. A bigger one. A safer one. Maybe even a better one. And somewhere deep inside, something small but fierce whispered, "This wasn't the end. This was the beginning." I woke the next morning unsure of where I was. For a split second, I thought the flood had been a nightmare, that I'd wake in my old bedroom with paint-peeling walls and mismatched furniture. But then I saw the view, the skyline, the sunlight stretching over glass towers, and reality returned. Noah's home. Safety. Temporary. But for now, enough. I sat up slowly. My muscles ached from tension more than physical exhaustion. I showered again, more for grounding than necessity, and put on the soft clothes he'd left. When I stepped into the living space, I found Noah in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, barefoot, cooking. The billionaire tech icon was scrambling eggs like a normal person. He looked up and smiled. "Morning. Food?" My stomach answered before I did, growling loudly. It startled both of us, and I laughed, a small, unsteady sound I hadn't made in days. "Yeah," I said, "food sounds good." He gestured to the bar stool. "Sit. Eat. We've got things to talk about." That line made my chest tighten. I wasn't sure if things meant logistics or my life falling apart. When I took a bite of breakfast, I nearly cried again. Maybe hunger made it taste better. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe kindness. "Thank you," I whispered. He didn't brush it off with something casual like I expected. Instead, he looked at me seriously. "You don't need to thank me for helping you." I nodded, though I wasn't sure I believed him yet. After breakfast, we moved to the sitting area. He handed me a mug of tea, then opened his laptop. "So," he said gently, "first step is figuring out what the insurance covers. After that, housing support, temporary relief, storage, there are resources." I stared at him. "You don't have to do all this." He leaned back. "Emma, let me ask you something. If roles were reversed, if everything I owned washed away, would you help me?" "Of course." "Then let me help you." Those words sank deeper than I expected. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Noah exhaled, rubbed the back of his neck, and said, "There's something else you should know. What happened to your neighborhood? It's everywhere. The news, social media, it's national coverage." My chest tightened. I figured. They're calling it the Millhaven surge disaster. Hundreds lost homes, some lost pets. One family lost everything, including their business. I swallowed hard. I wasn't the only one suffering. Somehow, that made the pain heavier, not lighter. "So, what happens now?" I asked. "We rebuild," he said quietly, "one step at a time." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then raised an eyebrow. "It's your parents." Ice rushed through me. "They called you?" "No." His tone sharpened. "They messaged the number you texted me from. Must have noticed the car." A shaky breath escaped me. Of course. The Rolls-Royce had been a message, whether Noah intended it or not. "What did they say?" He turned the screen toward me. 3 messages. "Emma, come home. We misunderstood. We were shocked. We didn't mean those things. Come back." And the last one. "Bring your friend. We'd like to talk." My stomach dropped. "They don't want me," I whispered. "They want access." "To me?" Noah finished. I looked at him apologetically, as if his success was something I now dragged into complication. He shook his head. "None of this is your fault." Another message came through as we stared. "We're having people over tonight. You should come." I let out a hollow laugh. Unbelievable. Noah closed his phone. "Ignore them." But part of me couldn't. Part of me still wanted answers. Closure. Dignity. Truth. I should go. Noah studied me carefully. "You don't owe them anything." "I know," I said quietly, "but I need to hear them say it to my face. I need to see what they truly want." He hesitated, then nodded. "If you're going, I'm going with you." I opened my mouth to protest, but the look in his eyes, protective, steady, unshakable, silenced me. "Okay," I whispered. That evening, after hours of silent thinking and too many what-ifs, we drove back to my parents' neighborhood. This time, in daylight, the Rolls-Royce drew even more eyes. Curtains moved. People stared. Whispers spread faster than wind. When we reached the house, I froze. Cars were parked everywhere. People dressed in their best clothes stood on the porch with wine glasses. A party. A celebration. My disaster had become their opportunity. My mother appeared at the door first, smiling too wide, acting as though last night never happened. "Oh, sweetheart," she rushed forward, arms open, voice trembling with performance. "We're so glad you're safe." But this time, I didn't step forward. I didn't reach for her. I didn't soften. Noah stood beside me, calm and unreadable. My mother blinked, her smile faltering. My father approached next, posture straight, handshake ready, not for me, but for Noah. He extended his hand. Noah didn't take it. Instead, he spoke, not loudly, but clearly enough for everyone watching to hear. "Before anything else," he said, "Emma deserves an apology." Silence fell over the porch. Eyes turned, breath held. And for the first time in my life, my parents looked uncertain. Silence thickened the air like fog, heavy, awkward, impossible to ignore. Every guest on the porch seemed frozen mid-breath, watching my father like he was on trial. Maybe he was. My father's forced confidence faltered. His jaw twitched once, twice, before he finally cleared his throat and said, "Emma, your mother and I, we spoke poorly yesterday. We were overwhelmed. The situation caught us off guard." Not an apology. A justification. My mother chimed in quickly, placing a hand on his arm like she could soften the moment. "Yes, sweetheart. Everything happened so fast. You can't blame us for reacting the way we did." I stared at them both. Really stared. And for the first time, I saw exactly what Noah had seen before I was ready to admit it. They weren't sorry. They were embarrassed. Not about what they'd done, but about being witnessed doing it. The flood didn't damage their reputation. Their decision did. Noah stayed silent beside me, not stepping in, not protecting me, just waiting, giving me the space to decide whether I wanted to speak or walk away. I took a slow breath. "You had one job," I said softly. "To care. To open a door. Not even to fix anything. Just let me in." My mother's eyes flickered. First annoyance, then pity, the condescending kind. "Oh, Emma, you're emotional. Anyone would be." "I'm not emotional," I said calmly. "I'm disappointed." That landed harder than yelling ever could have. My father straightened like a man reclaiming control. "This conversation is not appropriate in front of guests." I almost laughed. "You invited guests knowing my life washed away less than 24 hours ago." He hesitated, and that tiny pause was the truth. This wasn't a family discussion. It was damage control. Noah finally spoke, not loud, not cruel, just steady. "Emma has been through trauma. She deserves empathy, not excuses." Several guests nodded. Some looked uncomfortable. One woman murmured quietly, "She's right." My father's face flushed. For a second, I thought he might yell. Instead, he exhaled and said through clenched teeth, "Fine. Emma, we're sorry you felt unwelcome. You may stay here until you sort things out." My chest tightened, not with relief, but disbelief. "You're apologizing for how I felt, not what you did." My mother blinked, confused. "Isn't that the same thing?" "No," I whispered. "It isn't." Another silence swept over us. This one colder. Finally, I asked the question sitting heavy in my throat. "If Noah hadn't shown up, would you have opened the door?" They didn't answer. They didn't need to. My father looked away. My mother pressed her lips together. Their silence was the loudest truth they'd ever given me. I nodded once. Quiet, final. "I needed this moment," I said softly, "not because I wanted to come back, but because I wanted clarity." My father squared his shoulders. "And what clarity is that?" "That I spent years believing I wasn't enough for my own family, that I had to achieve more, earn more, become better to deserve love." I paused, breath unsteady. But last night proved something I should have realized long ago. I looked between them. I never had a place here, not because I failed, but because you chose image over connection. My mother's eyes filled, not with remorse, but with fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing the narrative. Noah placed a gentle hand on my back, not pushing, simply grounding me. I straightened. "I'm leaving now," I said quietly. "Not because I'm angry, but because I finally understand I don't belong here." My father sputtered, "Don't be dramatic." But I was already stepping away. Noah fell into step beside me. Guests parted like water, watching with expressions ranging from sympathy to discomfort to respect. When we reached the bottom of the driveway, I turned back, not to plead, not to reconsider, but to close the chapter properly. "I hope someday you value people more than appearances." Then I walked toward the car. The door shut with a soft click, far gentler than the one that slammed last night, but infinitely more final. As the engine hummed and the house faded in the rearview mirror, Noah glanced at me. "You okay?" I swallowed hard. "No," I said honestly, "but I will be." We drove in silence for a few minutes, the good kind, the kind that didn't require filling. Then Noah said quietly, "You didn't just walk away from them." I turned to him. "You walked toward yourself." The words settled deep in my chest, heavy, painful, healing. And for the first time since the flood destroyed my home, I felt something that surprised me. Not grief. Not anger. Hope. The days that followed moved strangely, slow and fast at the same time, like grief and healing were taking turns steering my body. Sometimes I woke up energized, determined to reclaim my life. Other mornings, I stared at the ceiling feeling hollow, wondering how everything could change so fast. But every morning, without exception, I smelled coffee before I opened my eyes. Noah made a point to check on me, never hovering, never pushing, just present. His presence became a quiet anchor I hadn't realized I needed. 3 days after the confrontation with my parents, we met with an insurance adjuster. The meeting was clinical, paperwork heavy, and emotionally exhausting. Photos of my destroyed home flashed on his tablet, collapsed walls, mud-caked furniture, broken windows, my life reduced to soggy debris. When he finished his inspection notes, he cleared his throat. "It'll take time," he said gently. "Weeks to process, maybe months before funding. I wish I could say faster." I nodded, numb. "I understand." Outside, Noah held the door open and let me walk at my pace. When we reached the car, he studied my face. "You're quiet." "I don't know what to feel," I admitted. "Everything I worked for, every hour of overtime, every holiday I spent answering work emails instead of relaxing, it's just gone." Noah leaned against the car, arms crossed. "Do you remember when we were kids," he said, "and you lost your science fair project the night before it was due because your cat knocked it over?" Despite everything, I almost smiled. I cried for hours. "You rebuilt it," he reminded me. "Not the same way, not with the same materials, but you rebuilt it, and you still won second place. That doesn't feel comparable." "It wasn't the project they rewarded," he said quietly. "It was the determination." I blinked away tears. He had always seen me clearer than anyone else. Later that afternoon, as we sat in his living room with papers spread across the marble coffee table, Noah spoke again. "There's another option." I looked up. "Option?" He hesitated, not out of doubt, but out of respect. "You don't have to wait months. I could help fund the rebuild now." My stomach tightened. Kindness was harder to receive than rejection, especially after years of being independent. "Noah, I can't take your money." His expression didn't change. "It's not charity." "Then what is it?" "A debt paid forward," he said simply. "You helped me survive the darkest period of my life. You were a child, and yet you gave me more support than most adults." He paused, voice softening. "You gave me something money can't buy, a sense of worth, a reason to keep going." I swallowed hard. Hearing it out loud felt unreal. But this, rebuilding a whole house, Noah, that's different. "It doesn't have to be a house," he replied. "Not the same one, not the same town. You don't owe the past your future." That sentence hit deeper than he knew. "I need time," I whispered. "Good," he said. "Take it." He didn't push. He didn't persuade. He just let the idea sit beside me. Not a demand, but a possibility. That evening, while he took a business call in another room, I walked to the large window overlooking the city. Lights twinkled below, cars, apartments, restaurants, people, continuing their lives as if disasters weren't happening quietly in others. For the first time, I wondered if returning to the life I had before the flood actually made sense. That life had been built around survival, obligation, and proving myself to people who never cared. What if my life could be built around something else? Something gentler. Something stronger. When Noah returned, he carried 2 mugs of tea and sat beside me, but not too close. "What's going on in your head?" he asked. I stared at the skyline. "I don't want to rebuild the old house," I said finally. It wasn't a home. It was proof. Proof I wasn't a failure. Proof I didn't need anyone. "And now?" he asked quietly. "Now," I exhaled, "I don't want to live for proof. I want to live for peace." Silence stretched. Comfortable. Warm. Then Noah said, "I'll support whatever direction you choose. But don't settle for what's familiar just because it's familiar." A small laugh escaped me. "Since when are you this wise?" He grinned. "Since someone taught me what resilience looks like." I felt something shift inside me, not because he offered money, or shelter, or help, but because he saw me. Not as someone broken, but someone beginning again. That night, when I crawled into bed, a thought settled in my mind with surprising clarity. Maybe losing everything wasn't the ending I feared. Maybe it was the beginning I never would have given myself willingly. 2 weeks passed, and slowly, the numbness faded. I found a rhythm. Morning coffee with Noah, afternoon calls with relief agencies, evenings full of quiet reflection. Some days hurt more than others. Healing is never linear. But there was one constant. My phone kept lighting up with messages from my parents. At first, they were short. "Call us." Then, "We're worried. Please respond." And then, eventually, predictably, "We're having a family dinner Sunday. You should come. It will mean a lot." I stared at that last message for a long time. 2 weeks ago, I would have seen that invitation as hope. Now, it felt like history repeating itself, conditions disguised as affection. I didn't reply. Instead, I closed the phone, breathed deeply, and went to meet Noah on the balcony. He was reviewing documents on his tablet, but when he saw my expression, he set it aside. "They reached out again?" he asked. I nodded. "They want me at dinner Sunday." He raised a brow. "Do you want to go?" I looked out at the skyline, lights glittering like possibilities. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me feels like I should. Another part feels like walking backward." Noah took a slow sip of his tea, thinking. "Obligation isn't the same as connection," he finally said. I knew that, but hearing it spoken aloud made the truth settle deeper. That Sunday came faster than expected. I spent most of the morning pacing, not because I didn't know what I wanted, but because saying it out loud made it real. At noon, I finally spoke. "Noah?" He looked up from his laptop. "I'm not going." He didn't smile in triumph or relief, he simply nodded. "Okay." I thought maybe hearing them out would help, but I already heard the truth. I just didn't want to accept it. "That's the hardest part," he said. "Not the leaving, the clarity." We spent the afternoon walking through a quiet neighborhood, not my parents' street, not the city center, but somewhere calm. Green lawns, children laughing in the distance, dogs barking at fences. Normal life. Not performance. Not status. Just living. Halfway down the sidewalk, Noah slowed. "There's something I want to show you," he said gently. We stopped in front of a for sale sign planted in front of a modest home. Not enormous, not extravagant, just charming. White siding, a deep porch, a yard with old oak trees that didn't need permission to grow. I blinked. "Noah, what is this?" He hesitated, not nervous, just thoughtful. "I heard you," he said quietly. "You don't want what you had before. You want peace. A place that feels like yours, not something to prove anything to anyone." He handed me a small folded paper, property details. 3 bedrooms, a sunroom, a fenced garden, a fireplace. Simple, safe, warm. "But, Noah, what are you suggesting?" I'm not buying it for you, he said gently. I want to help you buy it. A loan, a partnership, whatever structure makes you feel respected, not indebted. I swallowed hard. Why? He met my eyes. Because you deserve a life you don't have to survive. One you get to live. The breeze shifted, cool and soft against my skin, and with it came something unexpected. Relief. Not because of the offer, but because, for the first time in a long time, a future didn't scare me. I looked at the house again, not as a stranger, but as someone peeking into possibility. It feels like a beginning, I whispered. It could be, he said. I didn't answer right away. Instead, we walked through the yard, my fingers brushing the railing, the tree bark, the grass. Every step grounded me more than the last. Finally, I stopped and turned toward him. Yes, I said softly. I want this, not because it saves me, but because it feels like the life I didn't think I deserved. A slow smile spread across his face, not excitement, but quiet happiness. Then we'll make it happen, he said. That night, back in the penthouse, I sat with my journal, something I hadn't touched in years. I wrote one sentence. Losing everything forced me to see what mattered, and what never did. My phone buzzed one last time. My mother. I didn't open the message. Instead, I blocked the number. Not out of anger. Out of peace. I placed the phone face down, breathed deeply, and let silence settle in. Some endings aren't explosions. Sometimes, the quiet truth is enough. And as I drifted to sleep, I realized something. My story hadn't been washed away in the flood. It had finally begun.